All right, Christine Renner here. So happy to have her. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. It's a beautiful day today. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It is a beautiful day today. We've had a lot of beautiful weather here in Austin lately. So I like to kind of dive in with going back to mid-March, and I like to kind of get a little bit of a story about what you were up to when all this COVID stuff hit and what you had planned for the spring and the summer and what you've been doing since I'm sure most of your plans were kind of kaput after that. What have you been up to over these last 7, 8 months?
Yeah, right when COVID hit and the lockdown happened, it was like the week of South by Southwest and
Mhm.
everything just got canceled. I was selected as an official South by Southwest artist for the first time. I was so excited. I had 10 shows booked,
Wow.
which I honestly don't know how I got my band to agree to 10 shows, but they're pretty awesome. But it never happened. So that was like that really sucked and it was kind of hard. But I decided just after that, I was like, well, I have nothing else to do. So I decided to go record my EP, The Bubble, with Frenchie and Anar helping. And yeah, we recorded 5 songs and it was like nobody, I don't know, everybody was scared to like go record or anything. And so I just spent a whole week, pretty much took a whole week of the time at the Bubble and just made a new record. And it was kind of unexpected because I was planning to have South by Southwest. I was planning to go on a little Texas tour after that. So I was like not planning to make music for like record new music for a good while, but I'm so happy I did. And I'm actually so happy quarantine happened because I was able to write more music. And that's what I've been up to, just writing music, recorded the music. I've been making music videos and just planning for this release of this, I call it the Heartbreaker EP. So yeah,
Very
really stoked.
cool. So you jumped in the studio kind of right away after the lockdown, or was that kind of in April or May, or when was that exactly?
It was April. I remember, if I'm remembering right, one of our first studio dates was like April 4th or something. Like I can
Hmm.
remember. So we just jumped in because nobody else was wanting, which everybody was too scared to go anywhere. And I was like, well, I'm gonna go make music. Like everybody's stuck at home. So yeah.
Yeah, Frenchie's a gamer. I've worked with him before, and I know he's been super safe because I've gone in the
Mhm.
studio with him. I think just 2 days, maybe two and a half since March. But I remember when they were moving out of the old space into this new space that they're in. He was like, "Yeah, we're tearing it down, or we're getting rid of it. Come in and just record." And so I remember those last days of that old one. He's a gamer. If the other person's down, he's ready to get after it. So he's good like that. I'm sure you guys had a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I remember the old bubble too. That's where I did my last
Yeah,
EP. I did it
yeah.
all there, and it's like it is. I love that little spot. And now Anar, I don't know if you know Anar. He's took over the little bubble,
I don't know
and
if I know A&R. I don't know if I know him.
he's a bald dude with tattoos.
I think I've seen him a couple times. Yeah,
Yeah, he
and
like
it
works really hand in hand with Frenchie a lot of times, especially with like artists like me that are like pop. Like, because Frenchie's a rock and roll producer, and
mhm.
I'm very rock and roll. Like, that's like a Led Zeppelin on my wall. But underneath that, there's the little heart. I love pop music too. So Anar brings in that like pop edge. He like toured with Kelly Clarkson and like all
Mm,
of these pop artists.
wow.
So they really like helped me find my sound together. It's really, really good pair.
Awesome. And then you said you've been spending most of the other time kind of just writing at home. Have you had to work at all? Or you just been able to focus on the arts, a little work from home, part
Yeah,
time? What have you been?
I'm lucky. I have my job never changed. I teach music lessons, private
Mhm.
music lessons. I have about 30 students, and they're
Wow.
all like from 5 to like 14 years old. So I have this like little niche of like beginner to intermediate
Oh,
students,
that's
and
great.
so I just switched from doing in person just straight to virtual and just like this. And I taught my lessons. It was a really good learning experience because I know now that if I do need to travel for something, I can still keep all my
Mm.
students. I can keep my job. I can do it from a hotel room as long as I have an instrument. I'm good.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah, my job
great.
never changed. My schedule didn't change. Like I was expecting for a lot of the students to like not want to do virtual, but they all transferred and I haven't lost a student. So it's pretty awesome. I'm really blessed in that way. I love my
That's
job.
great. That's great. Yeah, I have a 4-year-old daughter. She'll be 5 next week, but
Oh,
we had her doing piano for a good 4 or 5 months, and it was going good. You know, she was starting to get out of that early, you know, the beginning stages are, you know, they are what they are. But then that hit, and we tried doing, I think, 2 virtual things with piano, and it was just not happening. And I think it might be a little easier. I could be wrong about this, but I think it might be a little easier with a guitar than with a piano, because, you know, guitar is just face on. You know, you're face to face in a lesson anyway. With piano, it's kind of like side by side and over the top kind of situation. And she's only 4, so
yeah.
we just stopped because it was just not happening.
I do both. I do both guitar and piano. And
Oh, wow.
the piano, my ear got really good because every kid, none of them would face the camera at their fingers, or they would never be able to like get it where you could see. They would always just like, I'd be like looking at their ceiling or at like the top half of their head. And I'm like, so I had to really get a good ear to know, okay, like when they play a note, which C is it? Like my ear got really, really good and I could tell them no. And they're always just like, how do you know? I'm like, because I can hear.
Well, I may have to, you know, follow up with you. We may have to look into some lessons with you, because we'd like to get her. Actually, we're buying her a guitar for her 5th birthday next week, so she's super excited about that.
Yeah, I'd love to teach her. That's
yeah.
that's awesome. Now I'm luckily doing half and half, virtual and in person. So we just wear our masks, and like I have some in person and then some stay virtual. So it's like, you know, whichever people feel comfortable with.
Cool. Well, I may get back to you on that, because we got this electric piano sitting here, and it's not getting much use these days. So, so this is always one of the most fun parts for me, is kind of finding out everyone's kind of backstory. And I'm always fascinated by people's musical roots and where they come from. And you've already shared that you teach music, which means you probably have an early start on music. But why don't you share, you know, not only where you come from, where are you from originally, but you know, what were your early music influences, and how young did you start at piano and guitar, and give us some background on that stuff.
So I'm born and raised in Austin. So I've been here all my life. I've lived a little bit around around Austin, north, some west, but always been in Austin. And I grew up with my dad playing in bands. He had a band as I grew up. So I would go to his gigs and stuff. And so my soundtrack of my childhood is like Hotel California, Layla, Stairway to Heaven, like all of the classic rock classics. I like grew up just around that. And I like didn't know that it was classic rock. I had no idea. I just like, this was just like what the songs I knew. But once I was like 10 or 11, I started getting into piano. I started teaching myself a little bit. My dad would help me. Like I would ask him like, hey dad, how do I play D minor? And he'll like show me on the piano. And so I started learning piano, but very quickly I realized that piano is not a very portable instrument. So if I want to do this, like, and do shows and be able to play anywhere, I need to learn guitar. And so I started guitar. I kind of quit for like a year after I started because it hurt and it was really frustrating. But I picked it back up and started playing it again. And very quickly I realized that other people's songs were too hard to learn. So I started writing my own. I was like, I know 3 chords. I'm going to write songs with these. And so very quickly started writing my own songs. And I had this opportunity to go record a 8-song album in Oklahoma, this small little record company that ended up going bankrupt now. But at the time it was like really cool opportunity. And so I wrote my first 8 original songs that I had ever written, went up to record. And a big thing about that specific road trip up to Oklahoma was I remember being at a gas station with my dad and Hotel California started playing. And I was like, oh my God. Like one thing I was like, I know this song already, but I was like, what is this? And so he was like, it's the Eagles. And then all the whole trip, every song I was asking, what is this song? What is this song? And like, it was all just classic rock, and I fell in love. I like was like, this is insane. Like this music is so good. And so ever since that experience, like doing my own music and also learning that I love rock and roll at a young age, I just kept pursuing that. And then I'll say like my learning, I started off on my own, but I went to the Musicians Woodshed, the Austin School of Music, all of these different schools. And I've had many, many amazing mentors along the way that have like helped me cultivate my gift. And that's why I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing now. Cause I'm being for these kids what like, you know, what I had that really helped me. I get to be their mentor. And also I also know that there was kind of something missing with some of my, like, I never really had like a teacher that was doing what I wanted to do, or also that was like, I don't know, like an older girl that is like doing it. I just like in music and like at it. And I get to be that for some of my, like, I have like this 15-year-old student named Savannah, and she's like incredible songwriter. And like, I'm taking her under my wing. I'm taking her to go record. She's going to record a little bit with Frenchie, and just like, I just want to be this mentor for all these girls and like, and guys, I don't care. But it was just like, it's just really cool that I'm now like doing what like I always wanted to have. So yeah, that's kind of my background. My background's in rock and roll and just obsessively writing songs. That's
So you said you were going up to Oklahoma to record, and that's when you first were hearing classic rock?
Yeah, or like first knowing that that's what it was called.
Sure. How old were you when you were doing that, and what kind of songs were you going up to record exactly?
I was 13 at that point, and it was my original songs that I wrote about my first heartbreak from 8th grade. So, and it was kind of like pop.
That's great.
Yeah, it was just kind of pop music.
Sure.
And that experience, I think, wasn't my favorite in like when I look back at all my recording experiences now, because I didn't get to be a part of the instrumentation at all. I sent them demos. We sent them just me and my piano, just demos. And then this one guy producer just created all of the instrumentation for all of my songs, overproduced it. And then I, drove up there and got shoved into a vocal booth and then had to sing my songs. And then we were able to like, take stuff out, mix it and stuff like on our own. But it was still like such a good experience to have that at that age. But now like working with Frenchie now has been like incredible, because I'm a part of every process. I get a say in every instrument that happens, every beat. I'm like, I'm there hands on, and that's been really, really good, and just really good for my growth as a musician to like be able to have a say and know what instruments I want and what sounds I want, and that it's my choice and not just some random dude's choice up in Oklahoma. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say at 13, it might be a little difficult. You'd have to be quite the confident little girl to take the reins of the instrumentation at 13.
Yeah.
But it's nice that you were able to kind of say, wait a minute, even at that age, you're like, wait a minute, there's something about this that's not right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now, when you describe your reaction to that music, I love it, because I love connecting myself to my, those moments. And so right around that age, I think, is when, for a lot of us, it must be something about puberty or just getting old. It's something about that 13 to 15 range where your head just it gets this much bigger in terms of what you're taking in. And so to hear you say, what is this? I remember that so many times. And that's what I like asking people about their backstories, because those moments to me are so interesting and fun to hear about. So let's see here. So from 13, you did that, and then you were getting into classic rock. And then what did the high school years look like? Were you still pursuing music in those years? And that's when you're getting the lessons at the woodshed and stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I started playing in a classic rock cover band with my dad and with my guitar teacher at the time and a couple of the other students from the Austin School of Music at that time. We played a couple gigs, but yeah, we played songs like Limelight by Rush, and we played some Led Zeppelin songs, and like just a bunch of classic rock. It was really, really fun. But I started to realize that, like, I think in high school, like my voice, my vocal cords, I don't think I really grew into them until I was like 18, 19. I started to like really like, they started to really, it's a muscle. You have to like train them. And so
Yep.
I was so hard on myself and just did not like my voice at all when I was in that classic rock cover band, because I was trying to sing songs that were of like, these rock stars are like singing Def Leppard. They got these huge voices and I just wasn't there yet. So I actually kind of realized I was like, okay, maybe this isn't my thing. Like maybe rock isn't my thing. So I started to fall into the indie folk kind of singer-songwriter world. And I did an EP called Explore. And that was a 4-song EP I did when I was 16. And that was like my softer side. And like kind of went into that. But then after playing those songs and playing acoustic shows for like 3 years, I was playing so much. I sometimes had like 4 gigs a week. I was like obsessively playing. Wow. I just loved it. And then I was just like not satisfied. I was like, this isn't lighting my fire like I want it to. This folk stuff is just like, it is me. It is a part of me. I love the emotionality of it, if that's even a word. But I then I think actually when I had my first meeting with Frenchie, I went to him. He asked me, he was like, on your free time, what bands would you jam to? And I was like, Bad Company and Led Zeppelin. And he was like, well, that doesn't make sense when I listen to Explore and those songs, like that doesn't line up. And I'm like, I know, I don't know what to do. And he's like, they were pretty much like, get a band and let's make a rock album. So we like took my songs. I have an EP from that I released in 2019 called Tonight that I did with Frenchie and Einar. And that one is like my metamorphosis. It's like you start seeing I'm still got this singer-songwriter folky vibe, but there's some rock elements. I'm starting to have drums and electric guitar. But the newest project is just totally like I've gone full force. There's no acoustic guitars on it. So it's like full force rock with a little bit of pop. Yeah.
And that's the one the EP you're talking about that is soon to come out?
Yeah, Heartbreaker. It's coming out. I'm planning like January, but I don't know because it's a lot to plan for.
Yeah, I mean, with COVID, it's like, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by the prep, you can always just do a single because it's especially nowadays, it's like you're not going to be able to promote it to a full extent because you're not gonna be able to tour with it really or whatever. So, yeah. I mean, if you're ready to release it, by all means, go for it. But if you feel like, oh, you need a little extra time, just release a single and then maybe even another single after that at the AP. It's all about milking it these days anyway.
Yeah.
So, no rush. Yeah. So, have you been in Austin the whole time or have you ever lived elsewhere?
Yeah, but I've always lived here and lived North Austin. And then we moved to Lakeway and then we came back and I'm back in my childhood home right now.
And was your dad a piano player or a guitar player or both?
He's both, but mainly guitar is his thing, but he's both. And that's why I'm both. That I play both is because of him. He really inspired me.
Yeah, that's nice. I wish I had, because I started late. I started playing guitar at 15 and then I started singing at 20. So I always felt like rather than try to take on a bunch of stuff, I was just going to focus on those 2 things as much as I could and get as good as I could. And it took many years to do that. So I'm glad I stuck with them because it did take all that time to get it. But it's nice when you have somebody like yourself who starts young and has the father. So maybe my daughter will have the same advantages that you had, but yeah, I wish I could, there was a couple years I was trying to do some stuff on the piano, but I was like, I got enough work to do on the vocals and the guitar. It's like, this is just going to take a lot of extra time, but it's awesome that you have that foundation. So when you go into the studio, well, since you also have this great foundation of writing at a very young age, which is very unique. of all the people I've talked to, that is not common. So you start writing at a young age. What has been your process since being a young teen all the way up to your present day for your writing? Has it been the same all those years? Have you noticed drastic changes in the way you approach the writing process? Do you start with the lyrics? Do you start with the melody? What's your process there?
Well, I say I've never really changed. I still write to, it's like, I never know what I'm going to write about until the guitar's in my hand or I'm at the piano and I whatever chord happens, I just go with it. And then it always starts with the chord progression or first chord. And then I assess, okay, I'm in this key. And then when I go to sing, I do have like a little notes in my phone and I have a journal where I write down lyrics and sometimes I'll pull from that. But most of the time I just sing whatever comes to mind right away. Like, because it's kind of a therapy for me. I don't know how to sort what's up here. It's a mess until I start playing music. It's like the vibrations of music like opens up, I don't know, so like opens up a portal in to like let those emotions out. And so whatever comes out first, I just kind of follow that, and then a song, and then I kind of work it together and it creates a song. And but I've tried, there's been times where like I used to have like a job as a hostess or like front desk, and I would just be so bored. Like, what do I do? And I try to write lyrics or like poems, and I can't. I'm like, I have to have music going before the lyrics come out. And sometimes it doesn't make sense at first, but I can go back and change it and stuff. But it's kind of always been that way. I've always started with the chord progression, and then I just emote, just let it all out, whatever it is.
That's pretty much exactly the same as myself. It's always, and I, that's always been the way for me. I haven't really changed up the way I do things. And it's the same exact thing. It's always, it's either a riff or like a chord or a chord progression. And then you just, you treat yourself as the vessel or the conduit to whatever energy is coming through you. And then, you just sprawl it out there. And then from there, it's amazing how, for me, it's always interesting for myself. And I think a lot of artists like yourself and a lot of other people are the same way. One of the most interesting things is, you start humming something, or you start, maybe even you throw some words out there, but they don't make any sense. You don't know where they're coming from. Right. And then from that, you're able to develop a fully fleshed song. In some cases, your songs might not make it as much sense, but, let's say 80% of the time, you're able to flesh out a fully developed song with themes and things that relate to each other through the lyric that started as just complete nonsense or you don't know what it is. It's so unusual.
Yeah, I always go back to a song I write, and like, at first I'm like, okay, this is coming out and this is kind of what I think it means or whatever. And then later I'll like go back and they'll be like, oh my God, that is what I'm going through. And I didn't even know, it just came out. And now it's like, whoa, that is what I'm going through, but I didn't even mean to write. It's kind of wild sometimes.
I know, it is crazy. Do you ever, this has happened to me once, do you ever have something, the first thing that comes through, it sounds great melodically, but then the lyric is just the lyric that comes through naturally is just like, I don't know. I've heard that a few times before. It's a little bit trite, and then I'll try to go back. But if it's not trite, I'll usually stick with it. But if it's something I've heard a few times or a few words that I've heard stuck together in a number of songs, that's when I'll be like, let's try to change that up a little bit. Do you do that too, or is it always just let's go with that?
Yeah, it depends, I guess. Like, because that is true. Sometimes I'm like, okay, this is cheesy or whatever, but I don't know. Sometimes I just stick with like my recent single that it officially releases on Saturday, on the 21st, In Love with Love. Like, that's the whole chorus is I'm in love with love, babe. Oh, oh. And that sounds so cheesy. When I was writing it, I was probably like, what the heck? And I actually didn't think of recording it for like 2 years, and then Frenchie heard it and he was like, that's a hook and you need to record it. And I was like, it's cheesy. And I'm like, but in a sense I'm like, well, like that's, people love a little bit of cheese. Like, people want something that they can repeat in their head, and if it's too complicated or too deep, they can't sing along, they don't like it. And so I try to mix like that simplicity in my songs, a little bit of cheese, but not so much that it seems like I'm such an amateur and I don't know how to write a song. But
No,
yeah,
I think that's 100% true. I think that's absolutely true. And to just kind of to backtrack on what I was saying, it's like it's difficult for musicians like us in 2020, where there's already been, you know, the canon of great music has already existed. There's already been classic rock. There's already been punk rock. There's already been metal. There's already been rap. So there's already been so many great songs that have used these words over and over and over again that it's very difficult to come up with something that's truly authentic. And obviously everyone who's an artist knows that everything that they do, they're in some ways copying it from someone else. You know, you're getting your influences or whatever from somebody else. So it's really about just having that. And it goes along with what you're just saying, but it really just goes along with, doesn't matter if it sounds cheesy. It just has to be you. It's about
authentic.
you know what I mean? It has to be coming from Christine Renner. It has to be coming from Sam Pace, and it has to be a voice that's, you know, sounds familiar but new at the same time. So I totally get what you're saying. So you've been in the studio, you've been writing a lot of new songs. Have you been able to play any shows over the last 8 months? Doing any live streaming, anything like that?
I've been doing some live streaming. Yeah, I've been doing October and November every Wednesday at 11:11 a.m. I've been going live and mostly well, actually all pretty much solo. Or I had one of them, I had my guitar player play with me. But yeah, I really, really, really miss shows, and I plan to have sometime in December have like an outdoor show. Like my guitar player has a cool house with a garage that we were going to turn into a stage, and then anybody can go out in the lawn and just like chill and have it socially distanced. But yeah, no, I haven't really had any besides just a live stream on Instagram. It's just like like I miss it so much. My dad is in a cover band, another classic rock band, and he did a show recently up in Georgetown, and they had me come up at the end and I sang a couple classic songs like Dreams and Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin. And it was so fun. It was so cool too, because I'm always with the guitar, I always have the guitar, but there was already a band. So I got to take the mic and like dance. And so it was a fun little like 3-song. I put my whole self into it, and I was like, I miss this. I'm like stage deprived.
I agree 100%. I was doing, you know, I was taking a full advantage and doing just fine for those first 5-6 months. And really over the last 6 weeks or so, really starting to feel the deprivation that you're talking about, and really starting to get bored with not being able to do it. Because I mean, you know, excuse me, I love to practice. I love to write. The live streaming's okay, but you can't do that forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's all about that performance of it. That's the whole thing. So we'll see. I'm definitely playing it safe myself. I have, you know, a wife and a daughter, and we're trying to keep it safe as possible. And we'll see. I don't know how much longer I can really hold out.
I know.
It's not getting better. It's certainly not getting better.
No,
you know, the numbers are up and everything. So you mentioned, you know, you were kind of, you have you're a fan of pop, you have pop influences, you did the folk stuff. And now on this new thing, you're saying it's more unbridled rock and roll. Do you see your future trajectory kind of going for that full blown rock and roll sound, or do you see yourself bouncing around from you know, pop to folk to rock and then back again? Or do you really want to take the rock and roll bull by the horns from now on?
I'm actually, so I have like I'm like having released this EP and I already have the next 5 planned. I'm like, got so many song ideas, but my main thing I've been kind of contemplating, and I actually spent most of quarantine writing music for the album, the idea that I have. Hopefully after this EP, if not, I'll do another one and then do an album. But I really want to do an album, and I want to call it the Dreamer album, because I have a tattoo that says Dreamer. And I'm like, that one, like, I definitely have been in my writing process. I've been going back to the acoustic guitar. Like, I fell back in love with it but they're still very much on the electric guitar. So I think it's going to be a big epic mix of everything I do and I'm good at. I think I'm going to have like just some like a, you know, maybe like a half and half mix of this acoustic. I also, when I write ballads, I end up, they turn into power ballads and they turn epic. So even if it starts all chill, like a lot of times it'll be like, okay, it's a chill folk song, but then it turns into a rock song, you know? So I think I'm really finding myself in that mix that's not full blown like AC/DC, but not like super soft. And it's just kind of like, you know, Fleetwood Mac and Tom Petty have that, you know, that kind of both. And that's what I kind of want to do. It's all about the song. And then, you know, it's like what makes it rock and roll is that it's authentic. And me being authentic is, you know, being a mix of everything, a mix of my pop and folk and rock. So it'll be like, I think I'm going to mix it this time. I really think this Heartbreaker EP, I wanted to make it full, just electric guitar, like kind of bigger and rock, so I can establish that I'm like, y'all, I'm a rock star. But the next kind of like, we're gonna kind of have this floaty dreaminess come back because I do miss that a lot. And so yeah, a mix, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear you say that because I have found as well, like, you know, you got to itch what scratch. That's funny that I'm doing that as I'm scratching my neck. You got to scratch what itch comes. But, you know, I've really found over the last chunk of years, like for instance, I was doing like a hard rock band for 4 years, and then we split up and I was focusing on acoustic stuff. And then since for 8 years straight in Austin, I was just trying to get the rock and roll 3-piece, you know, thing going. And that was great. And then I found, I was like, well, I want to get back into some acoustic. And now the balance is great because you can really, it satisfies so many different things. It feels great to have an acoustic guitar and really get into the vocal, and you can really lean into the lyric. You can lean into the, you know, the human touch of it. And then of course there's nothing like a good rock and roll, putting on a rock and roll show. That's just, that's the best too. So good. I'm glad to hear you say you're going to do both, because I think you'll find that, yeah, you're finding it, as I don't need to tell you, but yeah, good. So what do you have aside from all the material you have ready and you're going to release this album? Well, I guess you've kind of answered that question. Do you have anything else planned for the next 4 to 6 months aside from the new music you want to record and putting out the album, or is that pretty much covered?
No, I mean, like I'm releasing a single next week with a music video, and then in December I'm going to release the second single and probably a music video, and then probably like a third one leading into the actual release of the EP. But I don't really know. My brain is, I don't even know. I can't think of January. I think of January and I'm like 2021. I'm like, wow, okay. Like, who knows? Like if it was Dream World, I would be planning right now. I'd be on a map drawing my line of my tour, like all the way up to Seattle, probably. That's if all was like good, I would be planning a tour from Texas to Seattle and just hit all of the cities in between. And that would be what I'm doing, but I can't. So I'm like, not really sure. I'm not really sure, but I've got a lot of cool things going on inside. Like I'm in a band with my friend. And so my friend Paris, we're called Paracelli. I play guitar for her, which has been really cool because like I've started to accept my rock and roll side, and her music is very like rock based and I'm just playing guitar. So I really have been having to like confine my skills on guitar for rock in her band, and that's been really cool. So we're probably going to record, she wants to record with Frenchie an EP, so I'm probably going to be in the studio with her soon enough. And then I have I have one of my students that is going to be recording. So I'm kind of like, wow, I have this free time, because if quarantine wasn't a thing, I'd be busy. I'd be busy as heck and couldn't help anybody. But now I'm free and I can help others. And that's been really awesome. I can really help others, collaborate with others. I've finally been like co-writing. I really like to do that because it's so cool to see how other people's songwriting like combines with my own, we create songs. But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm just like going month to month, figuring out what to do, what I can do, you know.
Of course. Yeah, we're all in this, we're all in that boat. Have you been able to do much touring yet, or not quite yet?
I never have. No, I don't think I've ever played like a real like Christine Renner show outside of Austin.
So kind of to wrap it up, being an Austin native, I'm interested to kind of get your take. And obviously, if your dad was a musician, that gives you a certain perspective, but also your career, your music, path started young, and you can't always access the scene. Of course, your dad maybe gave you a side door into that, but you can't always access the scene because of obviously drinking ages and all that business. But, perspective that you do have, how has Austin been for you as a backdrop city for you growing up musically, and where has it stood for you over the last 2-3 years? Are you in love with Austin? Have you always been in love with Austin? Are you looking elsewhere on the map to maybe try a different place to live for a little while? Why don't you give us a little bit of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually really didn't like go to shows like, the indie shows and like really plug into the Austin music scene until I turned 18, and I was like able to go on my own because I was always just stuck in my North Austin little bubble kind of world, and I never really I was young, I couldn't really get into half the venues anyways, but once I was 18 and I was able to go to venues, I started going. There's not times where every night of the week I was at Mohawk, Empire, Barracuda, all of it, just like show after show, and it was so amazing. And I'd say, like, when you say, like, do you love Austin? I do. I really love Austin. I really love that there's like a kind of a family of all the musicians, and you play all the same venues, all become friends, and it's really nice. But I'll also say that when I was playing shows often with my band, I couldn't afford, I really could not afford, I pay my band $50 each per show unless I make more, but there was rarely a moment where I ever made more. I was always out of my pocket, paying my band. And sometimes that's gets up to $400-$500 a month to just do 2 shows with my band. And I'm running out of money trying to play shows, but I know that if I don't play shows, then I'm not going to make my next level. And so that's definitely been something I think that needs to change in Austin, is that and I think there is a lot of change happening. And I do know that also Frenchie is doing a compilation album, and he's working with the Red River District, that we need to make Austin's live music scene where we need to bring it alive again, where people actually come to pay to see music because they know it's going to be good, where we put on a badass show and that they pay for it so that we can actually survive. Because otherwise it's every musician I know has a side job, and that's fine. And I love my job on the side, but I want to eventually be able to not be just teaching as my full-time job. I want music to be my full-time job. And right now it just doesn't seem in Austin isn't giving a platform for musicians to do it, really do it, because there's not the money. And that's kind of something I've seen that's kind of been hard, is trying to actually make money in music. And it's it's not a greedy thing. I just want to be able to do this for the rest of my life. And it's I want to make a career out of it. So I've thought about I thought about Nashville, and I have some friends that are even going to move there, but it's so concentrated there as well. And then I think about, okay, what about LA or New York? And it's it's so expensive. How could I even imagine living there? So all in all, as much as it kind of is hard to be a musician in Austin, and it is saturated here, I think there's a community that other cities don't have, that we have, that I really cherish about Austin. So I love Austin. I will always love Austin. just think that we could do better to our musicians, I think, in our venues too. It's kind of sad. All my favorite venues are closing down.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think you make a good point. The community is great. It's a great community. That's one thing. I moved from the Midwest, and people are nice in the Midwest. As soon as I moved here about 10 years ago, it struck me right away just how nice people are in Austin. Really nice. And I don't know, since I've been here for 10 years, I don't know if it's the same for someone moving elsewhere. I think I've heard a few times that they've had similar experiences. You've been here your whole life, so I don't know what your perspective is when you're used to it. But yeah, the tricky thing is everyone that's moving here, or not everyone, but a lot of people that are moving here are people who are not moving here for the music anymore. You know, they're
Mhm.
moving here because there's a lot of other good things about Austin. It's a great place to
Mhm.
raise a family. It's a great tech town. So people making money and driving prices up aren't the ones who are coming out to see music. So that's what's really
Right.
tricky. But yeah, that's another thing about, you can look. I've been looking at other places on the map for years with my wife, and there's nothing else out there.
Yeah.
There's no scenes anymore. It's just
Mhm.
all online. So I think we have as good of a scene remaining as anywhere else in the country. So yeah, and New York and LA now with this COVID, they're really starting to plummet. The everything
Yeah.
about the living experience in both those cities is really starting to go down. And Nashville, I think, I've never been I like Nashville. Okay, I've never wanted to live there, but I think it's the same. It's the same story there.
Mhm.
It's lots of great music, too many musicians, and prices are going up there too. So
Yeah, Seattle too. I really like Seattle, but there's like no, I've done a lot of research. There's really not much of a music scene up there. And I'm like, what's going
yeah.
on?
And
Like,
Seattle's one of the 2 or 3 most expensive cities in the country.
wow.
It's as expensive as like San Francisco and New York. Like I said, New York and LA, they have problems now. But I know
Yeah.
San Francisco has problems too. But yeah, Seattle's very
Mhm.
expensive for sure. So, well, Christine, it's great to hear that you got so much cool stuff coming down the pike. I look forward to hearing the new music and more music after that. So, and I will probably hit you up about maybe some piano lessons for my youngin. We'll see.
Yay.
But it seems like you got a good method, and your whole gung ho for girls and rock and roll definitely suits our mindset as well. So,
Cool.
but good luck moving forward, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Of
Yeah.
course.